the screen sharing. Is the screen visible to all?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. So today is the second part of our session, and we are going to start with our sewing, the theories that is related to our sewing machines. Uh, so before anything, let's just have a look at what are the types that is there for sewing machines. The first one is the ones that possibly you might have seen in your home as a child growing up. These are the hand operated machines. Just the balance wheel would be on the one side, and somebody had to, whoever is operating the machine had to turn it with the hand. So it would turn like this with one hand, and with the left hand you would move the fabric on the, at the, below the needle. So that was the first type of machines that we had, and that was the hand operated machine, which moved on to what we called as a treadle machine, which is often we see in, at the tailor and all those, places where there is a small boutique setup, or a tailoring shop, which is called a treadle machine. Treadle, the word treadle essentially comes from the feet movement that we do. So the hands are free here. The the machines is placed on a stand, and it has a treadle, the tread, so there are wheels on both the sides, and then there is a pedal which is moved with your, movement of the foot. तो आपका your foot moves front and back. As your foot moves front and back, the machine moves. This is faster than our hand operated machines, but not as fast as we would want it to be, right? So it is, but then the advantage of this machine is that it frees up both your hands. You must have realized while stitching, if your both the hands are free, it is easy for you to handle the fabric which goes into the needle, right, which goes into stitching. Finally, what we have is an electric or a motorized machine. Or this can be the ones which are, the domestic types, like we have from Usha, Singer, all those machines which are, nice. Currently, that the ones we have are nice compact ones with a pedal. So these are the machines which where the, the balance wheel on the side is attached with a motor, and it has a belt. Now the treadle, that in this case is electrolyzed, so you plug it in and you press on the pedal. The more pressure you put in, the faster the machine runs. The industrial machine works in the same way, except of course there are, certain advanced ways, things which are there. The most important part here is that, so the industrial machines comes from brands like Juki and Brother. uh, the most important thing is the RPM, the rotation per, minute of the motor. The industrial machines are much more faster. So if you are working for mass production, you would rather have an industrial machine than that of a domestic use. Okay, so these are the three basic types of machines. Let's look at the parts of a sewing machine. It's very important that, as a somebody who knows stitching, we need to know each and every part of our sewing machine, as well as know how to, what to do and which part is supposed to do what, and how all the parts have such important roles, and how to, how to take care of all those parts. What is the, function of such parts. So let's look at the parts of a machine. Here, for the, case of representation, I have given an image of a diagram of a domestic sewing machine. The industrial sewing machine will have certain differences than this, but I assume most of you are handling a domestic sewing machine. Yes or no? Or do you anybody has an industrial sewing machine like a Juki or a Brother one?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
You have a Juki machine.
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
You have a domestic machine.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I am assuming
Yes, ma'am.
most of you will be having a domestic machine from Usha or Singer, or one of those brands. So hence I
I
put
have
have put.
both machine and I use. I know how to use.
You have both the machines, great. So let us have a look at the, the first, let us have a look at how a domestic machine, what are the parts of the domestic machine, because once we know the parts of a domestic machine, the industrial machine is of course a more advanced one. I'll of course tell you what are the differences in domestic machine and an industrial machine. But let's have a look at the the basic uh, domestic machine that is there. So we divide the machine into four parts. So we have this, so please follow my pointer. We have this upright section which is on the right. Then we have the arm, which is this horizontal section on the top. Then we have the face section, which is this part on the left, the vertical position part, and then we have the bed. So these are the four basic parts of any sewing machine. Now let's look at each and every part which is there in each, in the, each and every component. Let's start with the balance wheel. So this is the balance wheel at the right corner. You can see this is the balance wheel. In old hand operated machines, this would often come with a lever, an extended lever, which would run in a clockwise motion. Nowadays you have this foot pedal. The more pressure you put in this foot pedal, this balance wheel will turn, move, right? So this is the balance wheel, essentially is the part of the machine which is controlling the motion of the machine. It is the one which is, it can be manual, electric, it can be done through throttle, but the faster it moves, the faster your needle will move. Okay. Next is the stitch regulator. This is this. So there can be two of those. There can be one which is a stitch width regulator and a stitch length regulator. A very common one is that most of the machines will have this. It's called a stitch length regulator. So what is a stitch length regulator? We were speaking about stitch per inch yesterday. Do you remember? Does everybody remember stitch per inch?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we can have stitch per inch. So stitch per inch essentially is related with the thickness of the fabric and the thickness of the thread that we use. So we can have higher stitch per inch, which would make the number of stitches per inch in 1 inch, the number of stitches in 1 inch more, used more frequently in lightweight fabric. And we can have smaller stitch per inch, which would be used in heavyweight fabric, which would essentially mean in 1 inch the number of stitches are less. Okay. Next we have this, you can see this reverse lever here. So we have this reverse lever. So what does this do? This, once you press it, so you can, it can be here, it can be this side also. In either of the sides we have this reverse lever. If you press it down, the needle moves, so that the feed dog would move backwards. So I'll come to what feed dog is. This is where the feed dog is. So essentially the stitching happens in a backward, a reverse stitching happens. So if you want to lock your stitch at the end, so we use this reverse lever, which would lock the stitching. Otherwise you would, if you just run one stitch, what will happen? If you pull the thread, it will come off, it will rip off. But if we, at the end, so if we press this lever and we do a little back tacking, what we call as a back tacking, the reverse stitching is called as a back tacking. If you do the back tacking, it, it just seals the stitch very nicely and completely. Okay. Now comes,
Yes,
let's come to the arm part. So arm part is the horizontal, top part is the arm part. So what are the things here? So we generally have a oil window or oil gauge here. So this is essentially can be somewhere, you just here or here somewhere. There is a oil window which gives us a idea of the, indicates the amount of oil that is there in the self oiling machine. In an industrial machine, however, it will not be here, it will be below the bed, because the industrial machine comes with a complete setup of the table and the stand and everything. So it is below the bed. So but in domestic machines it is located in the arm section. Then we have a spool stand or a spool pin, as we call it. So this is what the spool pin is. What we do is we put in the thread here. So there it's like a pin, it will rotate in its position, and we have the thread uh, put in here. Okay. Then we have this thread guides, the first thread guide which will be here. So we'll have the thread guide which goes through here. We'll come to this part in a moment, right? So it, because this can be here or somewhere else also, so we'll come to this in a moment. So first, this part essentially talks about the oil gauge, the spin, and the thread. Next, we come to the face of the machine. In the face of the machine, one of the most important part of the machine that is there is the needle. Now, the needle will come with a needle bar. Needle bar kya hai? There would be a vertical metal plate which on which the needle is mounted. It comes with a screwdriver. You open the screwdriver, loosen the screwdriver, put your needle in, mount your needle in, and that part is called the needle bar. It works with a, with help, the needle is attached in the needle bar with the help of a needle clamp. Next, we have a pressing bar. Pressing bar is essentially something which is just above your pressure foot. This is the pressure foot, right? This is, you must have seen this in your machine, everybody. It comes with uh, two metal strip like structure which holds the fabric down, which keeps the fabric in its place. And so, but then this is attached with a, again, a vertical metal bar that is called the pressing bar, which the lower part of which is attached to the pressure foot. Now, the pressure foot, the purpose of the pressure foot apparently is one of the very important parts. It helps your fabric from, moving idhar udhar. So, if your pressure foot, so for example, if you're stitching, let's say if you're stitching a corner, you have to rotate your fabric, and your pressure foot has to be lifted up. In those cases, make sure the needle is inside the fabric. Otherwise, the stitch might not fall in the proper line where you want it to be. So the pressure foot essentially is used so that everything is in place. Okay. So it is also helpful because the fabric has some sort of support at the bottom. If you do not have any support on the top, the tension of the stitch goes haywire. So it gives a equal pressure from top as it is getting from the bottom. Then we have a pressure regulator. Now this pressure regulators are is it's essentially, it is the amount of pressure the pressure foot should have on the fabric. Now this is generally located just above the pressure bar, and this pressure bar is essentially, so if you rotate it clockwise, it increases the pressure. If you rotate it anti-clockwise, it will reduce the pressure. So if you have a more sheer fabric, lightweight fabric, you would rather have more pressure. If you have a heavyweight fabric which already has its own weight in itself, will have a lesser pressure. Also, fabrics such as corduroys or velvet, if you have too much pressure on them while stitching, what happens is that it leaves a mark of the pressure foot on the, fabric, on the face of the fabric. So we would of course not want that sort of marks. We would want our stitched garment to be very clean. So in heavier weight fabrics such as, and specifically fabrics which can have a tendency to have marks on them, like velvet and corduroys, you would have the pressure to be lesser than what you would have in rather silk or cotton. Next, we have this part which is we call as the pressure foot lifter. It is generally located at the back of the machine. So you pull it up and the pressure foot would rise up, and you can move your fabric. Okay. We also have certain tension regulators here which essentially uh, controls um, the the tension that is there in the needle, tension of the thread that is there in the needle. So you have tighter the, more the tension is, the more stretched and tight your stitches would become, the looser the tension is, the more loose the threads would become. We will talk about thread tensions in a bit, but then uh, that is the basic purpose of it. It comes with tension discs and tension nut. You generally move the nut, which rotate the nut through which the pressure is being controlled. Then we have this take up spring. So this is where the thread take up happens. So there would be, one small metallic strip of some sort of small metal through which you know it also works as a thread guide. You put in your thread in, and it, as the machine moves, that part of that thread spring up will move the fabric. This part, this metallic strip on the base of the bed, we come to the bed of the machine now. So this base of the bed, just below this pressure foot, what we call it as a throat pallet. So this throat plate is essentially something which, wherein it's a metallic plate wherein you move your fabric. Now remember, this throat plates often come with some markings. If you look at your machines, some domestic machines have those, not all of course, which comes with markings, so lines at, let's say, 1 by 4 inch, 1 by 8 inch, half inch. So till 3 by 4 inches, there are generally markings. All industrial machines have markings on pressure, this throat plates. The purpose of these markings are basically, when you are stitching, it works as a guide. So let's say if you want to keep a seam allowance of 1 centimeter or half an inch, you can use those as a guide, as the, to make it fall at the edge of the fabric, and you move your fabric. It helps. Without using any sort of adjustment, you can move your fabric like that. Next we have a feed dog. Now the feed dogs are located, so if you have seen the this throat plate, you must have seen it has a small gap at the center, just where the needle drops in. It has a small gap. From that gap, something pops up like a disc. Now the disc has teeth on it. Is everybody following what I'm saying? Each and every part of the machine, you might not have known the exact technical names of it, but I'm pretty sure you have, because all of you have machines, you have seen these parts. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
If there is something you do not get, please stop me and ask me to repeat. I'll repeat that part again, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, so this feed dog, essentially, what is the purpose of the feed dog? The feed dog takes up your fabric, and so, because it has teeth on it, it pierces to the fabric, through the fabric, and it moves the fabric ahead. So the higher the speed of your machine, the faster the feed dog would move. The higher the SPI, the faster the feed dog would move. Because I hope you can follow me here, that the more number of SPI higher, matlab the more there are more number of stitches in 1 inch. The more number of stitches in 1 inch, the feed dog has to move the fabric faster. The less number of stitches per inch, the feed dog will move the fabric slower. Yes, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So essentially, there is a very clear direct link between your feed dog and your stitch lengths. So essentially, how does the feed dog work? As your needle pierces the fabric and goes inside, the feed dog moves down, and only the pressure foot is in contact with the fabric. As the needle will move up, this feed dog will also move up, pierce the fabric, and as it moves further up, it will start rotating the fabric a little. It also holds the fabric tight when one stitch, one the needle pierces the fabric back again, so that it can form a very nice and tight stitch. There would be some other parts in any machine, which includes an oil tank. So the oil tank is generally located somewhere in the bed. There would, if it is an industrial machine, instead of a pressure foot lifter, which is like this, we can also have, additionally, apart from this, we can also have a knee pressure foot lifter. So it is located on the stand, side of the stand. You push it through your knee, and on the right side you push it through your knee, and the pressure foot lifts up. You do not have to, you know uh, do it with your hands. So your hands are again free, even if you want to uh, get your pressure foot out. There can also be a foot treadle, or a foot pedal, depending on what machine we are using. If it's a domestic machine or a industrial electric machine, we'll have a pedal wherein we are pressing, or we can have a treadle wherein we are essentially um moving the machine foot front and back. There is a hook at the base here. So we open this up. Inside the bobbin compartment, there is a hook on which the bobbin and the bobbin case fits. So that is, it works like a hook shaft which holds the bobbin and bobbin case together. This is the bobbin. We spoke about the bobbin yesterday also. I showed you one of the bobbins. And then this is the bobbin case. Now the bobbin case comes with a number of things. It has a tension spring. It controls the pressure that is there in the bobbin thread. It has a bobbin latch, which, so you generally pull it and put the bobbin in. So the latch holds the bobbin in place. It also has a tension screw. This tension screw is essentially regulates the the pressure that is there in the tension spring, which in turn will control the tension of the bobbin wing. And apart from that, there is of course a table and a stand which has to be there. Now, let me just give you a brief glance of what is, how the domestic and industrial lock stitch machine, what are the difference and common features. So most of the things are same. You can see the balance wheel, stitch length regulator, thread guides, all this will be there. What is different? First, the backtack lever. The backtack lever, in case of our domestic machines, are much more in a novice stage, a much more mature stage. Industrial machine, on the other hand, will have a much more advanced backtack lever. We'll of course have the knee lifter. I spoke about it. The knee pressure lifter. The oil window will be at the below the bed. uh, Yesterday when we was looking at those spec sheets, I showed you those three triple needle stitches. You remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So
Yes, ma'am.
a industrial machine can often come with a double needle or a triple needle, attachment. So the pressure foot will also be like that. The needle bars will also be like that. So essentially, and of course, it will also have eyelets through, thread lifters, from where we can get in all those threads. So we can have a double needle or a triple needle machine as well. There would be a oil pen, of course. The foot treadle is at the, so most of your domestic machines, it's generally connected with a wire, right? Just a simple wire which you can, and there is one box of machine which is placed. Industrial machine, on the other hand, comes with a complete table and a setup. So the foot treadle is fixed at the bottom. The bobbin winder. Why did I not speak about the bobbin winder here? So in a domestic machine, the bobbin winder is located at the arm of the top of the arm of the machine, right? And you just attach your thread this way, loop your thread this way, and you wind your bobbin with the adjustment of your balance wheel. In most of an industrial machines, the bobbin winder is located somewhere in the, here at the upright section, at the base of the upright section, the bobbin winder is located. Okay, now let's come to the needle. It is possibly the most important part in any sort of stitch, in any sort. whatever kind of stitching you do, you need a needle hand stitch or a machine stitch. So but then here we are essentially talking about machines. So when we are talking about machines, the purpose of a needle is to pierce and penetrate to a material without causing any damage to the material. Okay, so our purpose should be selection of needle. The purpose of a needle should such be that we remember yesterday we were talking about warps and wefts yarns, wherein how it moves through the fabrics.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
ideally, it should be such that your needle uh, penetrates your fabric somewhere between the warp and weft yarn. So there would be some holes between warp and weft. Your needle should penetrate through that. A needle should never cut through a warp or weft yarn unless it is required to do those. So we will of course come to that. There will be certain heavyweight materials which really needs to be cut through because there is no other option. So for example, have any of you ever tried to stitch leather or resin?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No. So what do you think when you would try to stitch leather or resin?
मैम
Anything
लेदर थोड़ा स्लिपरी होता है.
slip होगा? More importantly, अगर आप fabric को if you stitch, what happens is that even if you have done some mistake, you rip off the stitch, you rip off the stitch line with a proper, nicely with a seam ripper and everything. You might have certain marks, but then
Yes,
it is workable. It's still we can work around it, है ना?
yes, ma'am.
If you
Yes,
stitch
ma'am.
leather, do you really think you can do anything with it later? And your stitching has gone wrong. Do you really think you can do anything with it later?
No, ma'am.
No, absolutely not, because it pierces through the material. It holes through the material, creates holes through which you
सुई
uh,
की छेद है वो बन जाएगी उसका.
correct up the needle pierces it, makes holes in it, and then on these holes they stitch. A very similar thing actually happens in cases of heavyweight fabrics such as denim and canvas, because the fabrics are so tightly woven. If you do not pierce at least a little, you will not be able to stitch. However, even in this case, the SPIs and the needle size plays a very important role. We'll come to that in a moment. Let's first look at the structure of the needle. What are the parts of a needle? So for your reference, I've kept an image here of the front and the back of a needle. Just please follow my pointer again. So we start with the left side of the needle. The first part we call it as a butt of the needle. What is the butt of the needle? It's a small pyramid like structure at the very end. Generally we use it like in an upright position, so it is exactly at the top of the needle. It's called the butt of the needle, followed by the shank. The shank is the long cylindrical part of the needle. This is where the needle bar will hold the needle, so you will put this part inside the needle bar with the help of the clamp, and isi part ko it will be tightened with a screw and a clamp. Next come the shoulder. The shoulder is the part which is, it is convexing a little down. It is tapering a little down towards the blade. So it connects the blade with the main shank of the needle. Next comes the blade. This is the long slender position. So this entire part is the blade which completely goes in and up of the fabric. So this contains something we call as a long groove. So you can see there is a groove here. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So
Yes, ma'am.
this is called the long groove of the needle. Now, this long groove of the needle converts into can you see there is a long type, and then it flattens up here. This part is called the short groove. It is just before the eye. This part of the needle is called the short groove. Next comes the scarf of the needle. This is what the scarf of the needle. So if I turn the needle backwards, behind the groove, there is a flat part. This, so if you can see in, you know, in the close up of the scarf, so it has a flat uh, concave part. So we call it the scarf of the needle. Now this is again this, why is this important? This allows the hook, so as the needle will go down, it allows the hook to pass through when every stitch is formed. So if we have it straight, this, the hook will not be able to pass through it. Hence we have it a little concave, so that the stitch can pass through it. Excuse me. Followed by something we call as an eye. Eye is basically the hole of the needle through which the thread passes. So this is where uh, the needle will be threaded. So from the front we thread through the back. Next comes this conical part. This conical part is called the point of the needle. The point of the needle is essentially, the end of it is called the tip. So from the eye, the conical part that is extended to the tip, is the entire part is called a point. Now this is called a point essentially because it penetrates the fabric. Is all the parts clear to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
let's come to needle sizing. Now, how are needle sizing important? Needle sizings are important, uh, and how do we define the needle size? It is generally a metric system on which we calculate the size, and it defines the diameter at the middle of the blade above the scarf or the short groove. So essentially this is where the we measure the diameter. Just above the scarf, यहाँ पे we measure the diameter. If you look at it, after it tapers down for a quite a long position, इसका diameter same रहता है, correct? Needle धीरे धीरे taper तो हो रहा है, but for in the blade for quite some time the diameter remains the same. This is where we measure the diameter of the needle, and this is where we define the size. Now this measure is expressed in the hundredths of a millimeter. So basically it is multiplied by 100 to give the metric size. So for example, if it is zero point 0.9 mm, so we call it nm90. Is this clear to everybody how we call the size?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So it is 100th of a millimeter. You measure the uh, uh, diameter of that needle at that position. Whatever measurements are coming, you multiply in. If you measure it in millimeter, you multiply it with 100, and you get the size of the needle. Now, coming to the types, we can have two different, in a broad way we can have two different sorts of needles. Once we call as cloth points, and the second that we call as cutting points. Now what are cloth points? If you look at the first three photos, the first one is called a universal needle. Generally I'll show you needle sizes also in detail in next slide, but then um, the first one is basically have a rounded tip, a little more rounded tip than the ones at the bottom. If you can see, it is not as sharp as the ones in the bottom. So essentially it works in most of your fabrics, and it pierces through the fabric with some ease. uh, Please remember, here we are not talking about the needle size, but we are talking about the type of the needle points, right? So the first one, this one being the universal type. Next we have something called a ball point. If you look at it, it looks like a ball, right? It is used specifically for knitted garments. Now, one of the very challenge in knitted fabrics is that yesterday we were talking about warp and weft. So in woven fabrics, we have one line of yarns which goes perpendicularly, one which goes parallelly. However, in a knitted fabric, it is a single yarn which is looped again and again and again. I'm pretty sure a lot of you must have seen how sweaters are knitted, right? एक there is one ball of yarn जिसको हम knit करते हैं और एक sweater बन जाता है. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So a knitted fabric will have a single thread. Now think of it. If it's a single thread and that thread somehow tears off, the entire fabric will धीरे धीरे rip off. Is it not?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
You must have seen कि टी शर्ट या बनियान वैसे चीजों में अगर एक होल हो जाता है, नो मैटर व्हाट यू डू, वो धीरे धीरे वो होल बढ़ने लगता है ना?
Yes, ma'am.
So it is very important that when you are stitching knitted fabrics, you use a ballpoint needle. Now what this ballpoint does, it when it goes through the fabric, it penetrates through the fabric, it just pushes the interloops, veils जिसको हम बोलते हैं, it pushes the interloops on the sides and it goes through a gap of the fabric, so it doesn't tear off the fabric. Next, we have this one which we call as a stretch. Now, this is essentially used for fab. So, if you look at it, it is also, it has a rounded tip, but if you look at it, in this one, it was completely यहाँ से यहाँ तक was coming like a conical thing. For this one, it comes with a hump. So the needle is coming like this, and then it goes like this, right? Can you understand the difference between these two? The second and the third?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, this what it helps is it is used for very tight knits, or for example your inner wears where, or we have a lot of elastic or lycra in the fabric. So in this case, it forms very tight stitches. Next comes this ones. This bottom, all these four ones are essentially cutting points. If you look at all this, have very sharp points, right? Now, what is how are this different? The first one is for jeans and denim. As I said, denim needs a little bit of cutting, otherwise the fabric will not stitch. So it cuts through the fabric. It just not pierces, it cuts through the fabric. For quilting, everybody knows what a quilting is. What quilting is? The term quilting पता है किसी को? Uh, uh, have you seen those? Uh, okay, kantha पता है? Anybody knows kantha? Or those razai that our grandmothers would make using old clothes, layering old clothes and stitching so that
Yes,
everything
ma'am.
stays in place.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember all those razai? So those razais were just not stitched at the edges. It was also stitched in between so that everything stays in place.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so that is a form of quilting. Now, in more industrial or our fashion way, how does quilting work? Quilting work wherein we put in a lot of material inside two fabrics, and we do crisscross stitches so that those materials. Now, what sort of material are this? These are like those polyfill sort of materials which are very lightweight but keeps you very warm, right? So in jackets and all those things, those if you have seen those Louis Vuitton jackets and all those things, they have those quilted uh, materials. Now those again needs to be cut through, hence because there are number of layers, right, multiple layers, hence, but we needed a little more thinner needle. Why? Because these are generally lightweight fabrics. Then we have leather. If you can see, we use a very sharp and a very thin needle, right? So, but and it will also be a little twisted, so that the cutting point is a little twisted, so that it can pierce through the material. Uh, then of course we have another something which we'll call as a sharp needle, generally used for very delicate fabrics, but then fabrics such as rexine or suede, it helps in those things. Now how is this related? So this chart gives you a very nice idea. This is there in your I'm sure this is there in your uh, study material. You can go through this also. So the lighter the fabric is, first we have sheer, then lightweight, medium, and heavyweight. So the lighter the fabric is, the smaller would be the needle size. However, the higher would be the SPI. So can you see? So for from sheer to heavy, the SPI is almost double. Yes, more than double for that matter. Is this clear to everybody, or do I have to explain this chart a little?
मैडम वो SPI का मतलब क्या है?
स्टिच पर इंच, अभी हम बात कर रहे थे ना 1 इंच में कितने स्टिचेस होते हैं,
अच्छा,
है ना? स्टिच पर इंच सबको क्लियर है ना? बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है स्टिच
Yes,
पर
ma'am.
इंच. Everybody should be clear about stitch per inch. We often use the abbreviation of it as and call it SPI. uh, in industry it is a standard way that we call this SPI. Now before we move on, there are few things which are very important when you are handling a machine, because so many of you are already handling machine. I'm assuming you know those safety precautions, but let me just go through those very quickly, because give you a glimpse of it very quickly, because a lot of accidents happen when you are handling machines. I being a faculty in a and somebody who teaches stitching and pattern making so much, and I have been facing so many cases wherein the students somehow are inattentive, or listening to music or doing something, and some sort of accident happens. So you should be very careful, because these are serious machines. Domestics machines are fir bhi better. Still you should always be very careful while using a machine. First is the very very important thing is that you should turn off the power whenever the machine is not on use. If you are handling the fabric, you are doing something in the needle, threading needle, the power should be off. You should never have the power on. You never know कब पैर लग गया, कब machine चालू हो गया. So you should always have the machine off. While you are working on the machine, try to sit very straight. Keep your back straight. Do not bend in very close to the machine, because after a point of time when it feels very uh, लगता है कि पास जाके देखे, अच्छे से देख के करे, धीरे धीरे करे, फैब्रिक भाग रहा है. Do not do that, because it takes a toll on your body. You should keep your back straight. Your neck should be as straight as possible. Do not bend in too much, because when you work for longer hours, it really really takes a toll on your body. Always try to keep the area clean wherever you are keeping your machine, the table. Keep the area clean, because if you have too many things on the table, you might be so let's say there is a needle breakage, you will not be able to find all the pieces, and this can lead to an hazard. Your hair should be tied up. Your attention should always be work and hands whenever you are operating the machine. Whenever you are not you know using the machine, again power off. Also keep your feet off the treadle. Keep your feet away from the treadle. फीट को बस ऐसे नहीं पैर उठा के रख दिया, and the moment you want to use it, you press it. No, move your feet away. Do not, whenever you are using the machine, do not pull the fabric backwards. Okay, stop the machine. If you the needle can break, the splinters can harm you. So if something has gone wrong, just switch off the machine. Do not try to pull and hold the fabric with your dear life. For any, again, for anything, uh, saying it repeatedly, keep your machine off. You should also keep your hands, so we generally use our hands as guides to move the fabric in the machine. Keep your hands a little away from the needle. I have faced several situations where students have stitched on their fingers, so be very careful. uh, Also, do not you know overspeed the machine. Do not think कि जल्दी जल्दी करेंगे and let's just get done with it. Handle the move the machine in a way, in a speed which is comfortable for you, which is easy for you to handle. Okay, now let's look at how stitches are formed. So there are 5 stages through which these stitches are formed. In the first stage, what is happening is, so if I hope everybody can understand this diagram where this is essentially. So this is your throat plate with a pressure foot on the top. The black is the throat plate. The gray are the pressure foot. This is the needle. This is your bobbin, and this is the bobbin and bobbin case, and this is the hook. Is everybody clear about the diagram?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Cross sectional view. Okay, so in the first place, the needle is penetrating the fabric and taking the needle into the bobbin area. So it goes into the bobbin area, thread into the bobbin area. Next, the needle is coming back. It is as it is coming back, you can see a loop is formed. So when this loop is formed, this it is at the side of the needle. So this is how the threading is. It at the side of the needle, a loop is formed. Next, the shuttle hook. This is the shuttle hook. This is taking the loop forward and around the bobbin case. In the fourth point, what is happening? The the loop goes around this bobbin case and it is released. As it is released in the fifth part, it is pulled upwards and the stitch is fixed into a lock stitch. Yes, is this clear to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you have the machine, there are few things when you, which I'm pretty sure you just maybe as a part of the course, let me go through it a little quickly about it. How machines are being set up. So the stages of it is basically we start by mounting the needle on the needle bar. I'm pretty sure everybody knows it because everybody has a machine. You have already handled a machine. We thread the needle, prepare the bobbin thread, and put the bobbin thread in the bobbin. Insert the bobbin in the bobbin case. Then we insert the bobbin case inside the shaft. Make sure that you take the bobbin thread up from the throat plate. We adjust the thread tension for both needle and the bobbin thread. Always before start stitching in the main garment, you should always check your stitching in a rough fabric, and then we adjust the stitch length and we adjust the pressure on the pressure foot. I'm pretty sure all of you know this and you have already done this because you have been working on your machines for a very long time. Okay, now coming to tension. What is the stitch tension, which is important? Now, stitch tension can be balanced, can be unbalanced. What do we call balanced tension as? It is when your ideal stitches are formed, whatever SPI you have set it in. आपका ऐसा नहीं है ऊपर वाले में पुल लाइन्स आ रहे हैं, थ्रेड लूज है, या नीचे वाले में थ्रेड लूज है. It is a balanced tension in both top and the bottom of the fabric. It is clean stitches. Okay, that is called as a, and hence we this is how we adjust the thread tension. You can go through your content materials, and if you are not aware about how to adjust the tension, it is written in detail, but then I went through this a little faster because I am assuming, because everybody has machines, you already know how to balance tensions. If not, you can asked here. Everybody knows about it. Okay. Now, coming to unbalanced tension. What is unbalanced tension? Unbalanced tension is when either on the top of the fabric or on the bottom of fabric, certain loops are forming. So, threads, instead of having a tight, clean stitch, there are loops forming instead of stitches. So, that is when we call it as an unbalanced tension. Just a moment. Now, there can be certain common problems. Let's look at the common problems and what are the reasons of these problems, or how can we solve it. Now, the first problem that often happens is the needle thread breaks. So you start stitching and needle thread beach mein toot gaya. Now, there can be a number of reasons, uh, or the ways to correct it. So first, maybe it is not correctly threaded. Maybe you have not followed all the threading sequence. The first problem might be there. So first check whether the needle threading is done correctly. Have you not missed? Hopefully you have not missed anything, right? Next, the second and the most common problem that happens is possibly the tension of the needle. The upper tension is too tight. It is creating extra pressure on the thread, and it is hence, so you would try to rotate the uh, nut in an anti-clockwise direction and loosen it a bit. The needle installation of the needle, the mounting of the needle might also be wrong. It might be rotated a little, it might not be in the correct position. That can also be a reason. Your needle might also be damaged already. It might become, after certain usage, it gets blunt or breaks. Already the tip might be broken. You might not realize because it's such a tiny thing. So in those cases, the thread can break. Also, what is the quality of thread we are using? The A poor quality thread might break. Also, if we are using a thread which is very light for a heavy fabric, that can also work. Next is the bobbin thread is breaking. Now, what can be the reasons? The first reason being the lower tension is very tight. So, for example, just a needle thread breaking इसलिए हो रहा था because the upper tension was tight. Here, the lower tension is tight. So again, you reduce the tension in the bobbin case. The bobbin case might be having, it can be damaged, or maybe it's a damaged piece where the edges are very sharp and the thread is touching there and it is breaking. The bobbin itself may be, not winded properly. At times I've seen students, try to wind, just thoda sa karna hai, हाथ से wind कर देते हैं. Do not do that. Use your bobbin winder to wind your bobbin, because in those cases it doesn't have a proper pull in the thread and the thread breaks. Next, we have skipped stitches. What can be the reasons for skipped stitches? First, again, the needle threading is wrong. The needle installation might be wrong. There can also be a lack of pressure on the pressure foot. So the foot pressure has to be checked, and we need to increase the pressure on the pressure foot. The needle can be very fine for the fabric. That can also be nice. For example, for a denim, if you're using a fine thread, you might have skipped stitches because the needle is fine enough to go through that fabric. The needle, the again, the needle might be damaged where the tip is damaged, because of which you're skipping the stitches. There can be loops on the top side of the works. We already spoke about it in unbalanced tension, but loop on the top side of a work is a clear, sign that the upper tension is too tight or the lower tension is too less. So either case, there will be loops on the top. It is exactly the reverse if there are loops in the bottom. In the loops in the bottom, then the upper tension might be loose and the lower tension might be very tight. Or maybe the bobbin has too much of thread. You might have winded it way too much. We can also have crowded stitches. What do we mean by crowded stitches? Crowded stitches means कि हमने SPI तो कुछ set किया था, but it is overlapping. The stitches are almost overlapping. Why it might happen that the pressure foot is and the pressure bar, it is not, set properly. There can also be needle breaking. Needle breaking can happen for a number of reasons. First being that you have used a wrong size of needle for a wrong size of fabric. You're using too many layers. You're using a very heavy fabric and needle is too fine. It'll break. Or you're sewing over the, again, joineries or zippers where there are metal things, and it might break in those cases. There can also be the material not feeding properly. So the feed dog is not working correctly. Very common reason is the pressure foot. The pressure in the pressure foot is not correct, and there is also can be a reason that the stitch regulator is at at a zero setting. There can also be puckering on both the layers of fabric. You know what a puckering in a fabric is? Does anybody know what is puckering? What does the term puckering means? No? Okay. Puckering essentially means, can you everybody hear me? A lot of you are
Yes,
quiet.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Puckering essentially is something, for example, let's say when you're stitching an arm, sleeve with an armhole. I don't know how many of you have tried. But if you stitch with an arm and the armhole, at times gather हो जाता है. Fabric scrunches up. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Or I'm trying to stitch some curvy place and the fabric gets scrunched up. Now this, if now this is a problem with the pattern. Puckering in curved places is a reason of pattern, but the look of scrunched up fabric can a reason, in both layer of fabric, in stitching, the reason might be that the needle is, you're using too thick a needle. You should be using a finer needle, or maybe the thread tensions are very tight, or maybe again, you have, the SPI is way too small, less for the fabric that you have chosen. Okay, so these are the common sewing problems that are there. Let's come to pressing. Now, what is pressing? Pressing is when we use to remove all sorts of creases from a garment, and we set at a very, it gives a nice shape to the garment, shrink away any sort of fullness, very clean appearances. Uh, Essentially, we should always have, you know do pressing as a practice in a garment. In most cases, in garments such as jackets and all, you should pressing is done after every operation. Every stitch, you do one stitch and you press, you do another stitch and you press. Okay. Now there are two sorts of pressing. One which we call as an under pressing. Under pressing is essentially done during the process. So when you are stitching a garment, if you're pressing the garment so that the garment stays flat, whenever you're stitching it, it stays flat. That is when we call it as a under pressing. At reverse to that, what we call something as a top pressing. Top pressing is done once the garment is complete. There is something which is very important here, the difference between ironing and pressing. We often use these two words interchangeably. These are two, not two same words. Ironing is when we take the iron and slide it over the fabric. ठीक है, to smoothen out its surface. This is what we use in your ready garments. ठीक है, हमारा garment बन गया, that is when you can do this. However, if you do it on a normal fabric, on a fabric that you have to stitch, if you do that, the fabric will stretch. A ready garment will not stretch because the stitching is already done. But if you try to do it in a fabric which is still not stitched, it will stretch the fabric, and you will come up with two layers which are of different lengths. Okay, so ironing is when you are moving, sliding your heated iron. Pressing, on the other hand, you're just taking the hot iron and pressing it over one, every place. You're not sliding it, you're not doing a to and fro motion, you're just pressing over the creases. Okay, always while you're stitching, use pressing, not ironing. Is this clear to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
uh, okay, before we move on, there is something, few things that should be very, you know uh, mm, important while you are uh, using the iron, is understanding the material that you're using. Fabrics such as silk or crepes, they have a tendency, if you use iron with a very high temperature, so you should check the thermostat of your iron before using it. So a good idea of it is that you use a test material, check which temperature is working, and then you set for the rest of your operations, you use that temperature. Second, try not to use steam or moisture in materials such as silk or satin, because there is a tendency that the material will crump back. Okay, any sort of moistures will crumb back. All seams, all darts should be pressed in place before you move on to the next operation. uh, Apart from that, you might also see there are certain, in industry, there are certain operations in which ironing is done on, not a flat bed but on a formed ironing place. So for example, uh, you might see that there are certain fabrics on which, if you iron your, or press your iron, a shine appears. Like, have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, shine appears is because there is too much of heat or too much of pressure which you have put in. Uh, so, for example, trousers. ठीक है, trousers comes with pockets, side pockets, दोनों side में pockets होते हैं trousers में. If you use a very hot iron on the front of a trouser upon those pockets, you will realize there comes a shine line which is on the sides of the, on the edges, which gives a very, very cheap look. So you should avoid using such things. You should, make sure uh, the heat is set right. Too much of heat will melt your fabric. In fabrics such as synthetic fabrics as polyester and such, if you use, or nylon, if you use too much of it, it will keep your, melt your fabric away. Irons are generally of two types. We can either have a plain or a dry electric iron, uh, which is uh, which is a very common iron, which I'm pretty sure most of you have seen. Or we have a steam electric iron, which also comes with, what sort of fabric that is there. Uh, Now, in relation to fabrics, what's what has to be taken care of. Now, for cotton is fairly easy to press. It requires a very hot iron. You can use as much as pressure, as much as moisture. If there is, steam iron, or the fabric is, there can be glazed cotton fabric. The fabric can also be pressed on the right side. At times, if there is some sort of print or something, it is preferable that you press on the wrong side of the fabric. Linen, on the other hand, is a little tricky. We really need to use moisture because linen has a tendency to wrinkle a lot. So you have to use some sort of steam or moisture to iron those wrinkles out. However, if you use too much of it, linen will shrink. So make sure you are very careful when you are ironing linen. Silk is possibly one of the very difficult fabrics to iron, because it has a tendency that, if the temperature is wrong, it can cling to the iron, and it doesn't lay flat. uh, Also, so you should use a very light pressure and a moderately hot iron. Do not use a over hot iron. And moisture should be avoided at all costs. You should never steam on a silk. It will leave watermarks. So never ever use any sort of water on silk. uh, Synthetic fabrics needs cooler iron. So too much of heat will melt the fabric. So we will work more with pressure than from heat. So to avoid it, again, depending on what sort of synthetic fabric this is, it might also, if you use too much of moisture, it might leave watermarks. Synthetic fabrics are also not something which wrinkles a lot, so we just need pressing to keep things in place. So it is preferably that you just use a moderately hot iron and a lot of pressure. That is it. Lightweight woolens, again, we need a moderately hot iron. You can use steam here also, but do not over press it. If you over press it, there would be impressions. There would be, the iron का जो वो triangle shape होता है, वो impressions आ जाएगा if you over press woolens. Pile fabrics. Does anybody know what a pile fabric is? Yes, no, no. Uh, do you know fleece? Fleece पता है किसी को?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so there are certain fabrics. For example, towels. ठीक है, towel पता है सबको? Terry towels. Everybody know what towels are, I hope.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So towels कैसा होता है? एक side में there are certain loops and the other side is generally flat. Yes, or there can be loops on both the sides. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So fleece is generally used on the, you must have seen those hooded jackets जिसके hood के अंदर there are this, white or black structure which looks like woolen, but then very fluffy things and keeps you very warm. Are you getting what I'm trying to say here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so those are called pile fabrics. Pile fabrics generally have some sort of textured look on one side, and other side is generally plain. So pile fabric should always be pressed on the other side. You should never press the fluffy side of the fabric. It will lose its texture. Okay. Now we have spoken about seam allowances while we were talking about patterns. Excuse me. Seam allowances. Is somebody saying something? No. Seam allowances, we generally, again, students have a tendency कि थोड़ा ज़्यादा ले लेते हैं. What if the stitching goes wrong? So seam allowances often interferes with further construction steps. So it might create a lot of bulk. So at times we need certain things to keep the seams in place. A very common thing that we do is, again, as I am saying, that the students often take extra seam margins. So once you're done with the first stitch of the seam, you trim it. You trim the seam so that the seam, if you're happy with the stitch line that has, that is already done, you would trim the seam allowance a little to reduce the seam bulk. Next, we can do slashing or clipping of. Now, what is slashing or clipping? It essentially is done when, let's say, there is the seam has been done in a curve. So, for example, let's say I have to attach a facing to the neckline. I have a round neckline, and in the neckline, I have to attach a facing. So, once you have attached the facing and you want to turn it around, you will realize the bulk of the seam is not letting you turn it around properly. So in those cases, what we do, we slash small, in small distances, a little bit of seam, we slash a little. So with this slashes, what will happen is that when you will turn it around, the curves fall very nicely. While you are doing it, however, be very careful, because you, let's say you try to slash it and your seam margin is just 1 cm and you slash it way too much, what will happen is that you might rip off the seam, the already stitched fabric, you might rip it off. So make sure you are slashing as minimum as possible. Okay. Apart from that, we can also do notching. So there are notches which are available, and you cut those V-shaped cuts in the instead of just one slashes, you do those V-shaped cuts in the seam allowances, which can also help you to reduce the seam bulk. Now, what are the special seams which are there? Uh, so of course tomorrow I will show you the seams that is more commonly used, but there are certain special seams which are there, right? Now, why are these important is because while you're doing the seam, your seam allowances or handling your seam allowances becomes very important. So first is a bias seam. Now this is when you are stitching two bias cut fabrics together. Now make sure you keep this while you're stitching it, you're not pulling on the fabric. If you pull on the fabric, the length of the fabric will become bigger, because once you stitch it, because of course it will stretch, it's because it's on bias, it will stretch, and if you pull it, it will extend the fabric and the stitch will hold that extended length in place. So never pull a bias seam. Okay. Next is a curved seam. So when you are doing stitching a curved seam, keep the curved edge on the top, and so a curved seam is often when there is a straight fabric and a curved fabric, a straight edge and a curved edge. For example, let's say when we are stitching the armhole, the sleeve with the armhole, the sleeve is more curved, the armhole is lesser curved. If you want to stitch that, you should keep the straight fabric at the bottom, the curved fabric on the top, and you should turn the seam as the curved fabric moves. It will give you a better control. As and when you are curving it, you might need to slash a bit, so make sure you do that. We can also have a gathered seam. Gathering, I hope everybody knows what a gather is. Yes, no?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay, gathering is when you take a lot of fabric and you scrunch it in a smaller place to give a more voluminous look. So for example, a lot of skirts, we have gathered skirts जहाँ पे waist पे बहुत सारा so it is not pleat, but it is छोटे 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 करके आप उसको एक साथ together you take the fabric and you scrunch it up, often done with elastics also. Are you getting what I'm trying to say?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So for in case of gathered seam, the smaller length जिस पे the gather will fall should be at the bottom. The longer length. So of course a gathered seam will have a longer length which will be scrunched up to a shorter length. The longer length would be on the top. The shorter length will be at the bottom. Corner seams. For of any stitches which is happening at the corner, even if you're working with a smaller SPI, towards the corner you should increase the SPI a little, because the corners has a tendency to tear off. That is where the maximum strength is required. So even if let's say you're working with denim and your SPI is 8, you should increase it at least to 10 to 12 at the corner. Yes, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Coming to darts. Now, darts are often of two types. We can, call it in two ways: single point or double pointed darts, or we call it as an open dart and a closed dart. Now, what are the differences? A single pointed dart is a dart which we saw in our in our basic blocks that we were discussing yesterday. Your bodice block or your skirt block. You remember those triangle shaped patterns? Yes.
Yes,
No.
ma'am.
Yes. So those are single pointed darts. A double pointed dart is, it looks like a fish, looks like a burfi. It works. It is used mostly in your kurtis and jackets, wherein we start stitching from below the bust to top of the hip. So it gives a nice looking shape like SSA SETA. So there is 2 points, two ends to it. So make sure that what sort of dart you're working with. Now, when you're working with dart, there are few things you have to take care of. First is, specifically because you will be working on single layer fabrics, trace the dart on the wrong side of the fabric. Do not trace it on the right side. Whatever tracing, we should always have it on the wrong side of the fabric. So on the wrong side of the fabric, mark the dart with the right side together. So you take the right side, fold the fabric on the center line of the dart. So if it's a, let's say if it is like a triangle, on the center, you know, line, fold the dart, matching the legs of the dart. So the, you know, the sides of the triangle is basically the legs of the dart. Fold the dart on that and then stitch the dart, and once you have stitched it, you have to fold it back and press it so that it stays in place. While you are stitching it, also ensure that you do back tacking at the end of the darts. On both the sides you're doing back tacking, because on the darts a lot of pressure is, you know, pressure falls. It, darts are essentially made so that the fabric stays in place. So if the fabric is staying in place, and you know, it is, the extra fabric is fitted back, there is going to be a lot of pressure. So until unless you back tack it, it will not stay. Okay. Also, you know, at the end of the stitch, keep a little thread extra, about 7 to 10 centimeters, and tie a knot there, and then cut it. Do not just simply cut it, because we would like to reinforce it as much as possible. And if the fabric is a heavy fabric, if it is, you know, way too much, and it becomes, after you have folded the triangle, the extra fabric feels very bulky, you might want to trim it. Okay, you might want to trim the you know, the extra fabric that is there. For a double pointed dart, as I said, it is also called a closed dart. It is also called a fish dart. Looks like a fish, and it's called a fish dart. Again, very similarly, like you know, mm, um, single pointed dart, mark it on the wrong side. Again, use the center line. Now, instead, like for a single pointed dart, we have sharp lines, but a double pointed dart, however, will have a little curved on the sides. So we do a, curved seam on the double pointed darts. Excuse me. Again, as I said, for the single pointed dart, you might need to, so for a single pointed dart, because it's a straight line, you might not have to slash it, but you might trim the extra bulk. But for a double pointed dart, you might have to clip the fabric a little, because it's a curved line. And the darts should always be pressed properly. Okay. Now, coming to the fabric, when you are designing a garment, the selection of fabric becomes very, very important. We have spoken yesterday also about that, the right type of fabric, and you know what fabric is important to what you know, sort of fall. But then you we generally categorize fabric into three types depending on the weight of it. So we have those lightweight fabrics like chiffon and voile. or we have medium weight fabrics like our cotton, cambric, poplin, and heavyweight fabrics such as denim, corduroy, or casement. It is, if you're starting work, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you are have already worked in a lot of sort of fabrics. But for a starter, it is easy that you work with a medium weight fabric. However, for the correct execution of your design, you really need to select the fabric correctly. When I say correctly, it is important. For example, if you are making for, let's say, something for a kids wear, you might want to choose denim, or maybe something which is much more sturdy and much more playful. If you're making something for a very nice flowy gown for a woman, so you would rather use silk or satin or chiffon. So the sort of garment that you are using, it is very important that you look at the garment, you look at your client, you identify what is best for the client, and then you select the fabric. Next is the preparation of the fabric. Now, before you cut the fabric, there is there are few things you should always do. First is, so as a practice, what I always do is that I take the fabric on both the ends. So if, let's say, I have a 1 meter of fabric, a square block, I will pull the corners. So एक बार I will take the right top and the left bottom corner, pull it. Again I will take the left top and the right bottom corner, pull it. Now why would I do this? It's because कि आपके warp and weft yarns ना कभी कभी टेढ़े मेढ़े होते हैं, because industrially produced fabrics hai, the way it has been stored and all those things, there are chances that this fabric is a little teda meda, the yarns are a little teda meda. So once you pull it like that, it it takes care of the squidness of the yarns, and it places everything in place. And then if you iron it, it your complete fabric is well finished. uh, Before you can do this, of course, fabrics are comes in longer lengths. We might want to just tear it off, pull a thread. Then you block the fabric. Blocking is this is blocking is important so that we can take the fabric and align it, right? The way I said it, we pull it and we align it. Now, if your fabric is something which has a tendency to shrink, so for example, you are working with linen or cotton, so you might want to pre-shrink it. So what do you mean by pre-shrinking is that before you start cutting the fabric, wash it once. आराम से उसको wash कर लो, dry कर लो. It will shrink the fabric at the first place, and now if you cut it and stitch it, your garment will not shrink. Okay, so it's a very good idea that if you're using a fabric is which is cotton in nature, has a tendency to shrink, wash it first. Okay, you should always look at what is the right and wrong side of the fabric. There are fabrics in which it is often very confusing to understand which is the right side and which is the wrong side. If there is a print or some side of embroidery, that is very clear, but in certain solid fabrics it becomes very difficult to understand which side is the right and which is the wrong side. So few of the techniques to understand is that the fabric is generally more smoother and more lustrous on the right side. You can also look at the selvage. The selvage is smoother on the right side and a little punched on the wrong side of the fabric. There can also be this printing or branding which is done on the selvage on the right side of the fabric. There are also certain printed fabrics or certain woven fabrics which feels almost same on front and back. However, the prints would be a little darker and little more clearer on the right side. Also, for woven design, generally the designs are much more tightly woven in the front side, and there might be some uncut yarns on the wrong side. Now, coming to layouts. What are layouts? Layouts is how you are cutting your fabrics. So you remember yesterday when we were making patterns, I was talking that you can have cut two. For example, if I'm making a shirt, the front would be cut two. There would be two parts to the front, and the back would be one continuous. Yes, we spoke about it.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, but we are making half a pattern, right? हम आधा front बनाते हैं, आधा back बनाते हैं. So front, because there are two parts, you can cut it twice, and we write cut two, and it's very clear. But for back, we write cut one and we mark on fold. So what is this? How do we define this? So this is defined by the layouts. Layouts is essentially the placement of the patterns on the fabrics, and how they are placed to make any garment. This layouting is also called marker planning. Okay, we spoke about marker a little. So it also helps you to understand how much fabric is required to produce make a particular garment. So for example, now you might be making one garment and you can just plan it around, but let's say if you work in the industry someday, in the fashion industry someday, you might be making hundreds or thousands of garments, so you have to plan around your fabric very carefully. So the idea is such that you ensure that the maximum fabric is utilized and there is a minimum wastage. Uh, now, fabrics which are printed and has a direction of the print, like the one I was showing you yesterday. The one I am wearing today is also has a print, but the print is multi-directional. So I can cut it this way also, this way also. However, the ones that I was wearing yesterday had a direction to that print. Such fabrics are generally not very economical. That such fabrics will might have more wastage than a printed fabric like this or a solid fabric. However, it is important to understand the requirement of the client and work along with it. Now, what are the different kinds of layouts that are there? First, there can be an open layout. Open layout kya hai? Where the fabric is laid out without any sort of folds. It is important, it is the easiest way to do layouts. However, there are fabrics in which open layout is the only way. So if you have a very sheer fabric or a very slippery fabric, a fabric like georgette which is very sheer, or chiffon which is very sheer, a very slippery fabric like silk or satin, uh, or for that matter knitted fabrics, it is necessary to have a open layout. If you are open making and working with an open layout, you have to make full patterns. So when I say full patterns, your back would be a complete back from right to left, full back. So open layout works only when you have all the panels of your garment ready. This is the most commonly used technique that is done in the industry. Then we have the folded layouts. Now, what are folded layouts? Folded layouts are is where the fabric is folded in half, either lengthwise or widthwise. Either way हो सकता है वो. So the layering is done कि एक बार fabric ऐसे गया, then again ऐसे गया, फिर ऐसे गया, ऐसे गया. This is a folded layout wherein the folding is happening on the basis of the width. ठीक है, आपके width पे ये fold हो रहा है. ठीक है. This works again in cases wherein works very similar with open layout. However, make sure whenever you are doing it, what will happen is that in one case the the layering would be with wrong side up, In another case, in the next layer, it will be the right side up. ऐसे करके होता रहेगा. Is this clear to everybody? So if this is the length of the fabric, if this is wrong side up, this one would be right side up. Again, it would be wrong side up. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make sure you
Yes,
are
ma'am.
marking your pattern when the wrong side up comes in. You should never mark your patterns when the right side up comes in. Okay. Finally, we have a lengthwise folded layout. This is where the selvages of both the fabric, the edges of the selvages are matched, and you have this layout. Now, in these cases, if you have, let's say, the back on fold and it needs to be cut, you can just keep the edge to the edge of the fold and you can cut it and you do not have to make a full pattern. Very rarely used in the industry, but works specifically in tailoring and those sort of things. Now, next comes in the process, next what comes is marking. What is marking? Marking is when you take patterns and on the sort of layout that you have chosen, you mark your pattern so that you can take as minimum and of wastages can happen. Finally, we do cutting. If you have lesser layers, works with scissors. uh, so in most of your cases, if you're working at a boutique setup, your the cutting can be done with scissors. However, if you are working with a industry where you are working with multiple layers, there are cutting machines which are there, handheld cutting machines which are there. It can be a straight knife cutting machine or a round knife cutting machine, depending on the right type of number of layers and the number of fabrics that is there, and you can cut the fabric. Is there any questions till now? We are left with few more things. Any questions till now? No? Okay. Now, I have been talking about that there have been number of types of seams that are there. Now, there are certain factors which decide what seam to be chosen for, and where. So, what are these factors? The first factor is being that what is the type and weight of fabric that you are choosing. So, for example, fabrics that are heavyweight, or fabric that are something which doesn't unravel too much, we can have seams which are a basic sort of seam, like a basic plain seam. We can have that also. However, if we are using fabrics wherein the fabric has a tendency to uh, unravel a lot, we have to use a better sort of seam. When I say better, a more advanced sort of seam. Again, depending on the type, when I say what type of seam to be used, let's say if I have a fabric which is very sheer, so even if you have a seam and you try to just leave the edges, in those cases it might be visible. So in those cases we use seams such as a French seam, which seals the entire seam of the garment. We'll talk about these types of seams in detail. uh, the type of garment is also very important. When I say type of garment, let's say if you are working with a kids wear where the kid would play a lot, I would rather use a very strong seam, like a flat and fell or a French seam again. Uh, for a sportswear, it is essential that you use a flat and fell seam because it is going to have a lot of pressure on the seam. The seam position is also very important. Uh, when I say important, if we have to understand whether the seam is visible or not. If the seam is not visible, then maybe we can get away with it in a number of ways. But if the seam is visible, it is very important that it is unlined, it is well finished, and If if you're using a lining inside, then maybe I can get away with a plain seam as well, where it will seal the seam inside. Now there is also something which is, before I come to that, uh, how do we define the width of the seam allowance, right? We, in the pattern making, we took it as a standard of 1.5 and 1. However, the seam allowance is also important when deciding on a number of factors. First is again the weight of the fabric. Heavier weight fabric, tightly woven fabric, you can use lesser seam allowance. Loosely woven fabric, you might use more seam allowance. The type of garment again is very important. If it is a very fitted garment, for example, let's say if I'm working with a leggings, knitted leggings, I will use a bare minimum seam allowance and stitch it with a overlock machine. Or for example, an undergarments, the type of seam also defines. Tomorrow again I will show you the type of seams. As you will see that different types of seam requires different seams, and again the seam position. If the location is of the seam is is a straight, like a shoulder or the side seam, I can have a little more seam allowance. If it is a curved place, then I might use lesser seam allowance. A seam, whenever you're making a seam, there are few things which are very important. First is the strength of the seam. Make sure seams, if the seam is somewhere which would have a lot of tension and pressure, use a higher quality seam such as a French or a flattened felt, and ensure that the SPI you are using for the seam is correct. The fabric, so of course, will define what kind of SPI you are using, but the seam will also decide what kind of SPI you are using. And the appearance also is very important, wherein it should not be puckered, it should not have pull lines, it should not have markings and all those things. So make sure the needle size and the type of thread and the stitch length, everything is chosen correctly. We are almost at the end of the session. Now, where, how, and where we can define what to use. First is a plain seam. A plain seam. What is a plain seam? Wherein you have two layer of fabric and you do one stitch. A simple plain seam. And with that, at the in the so there would be raw edges. अगर हम दो फैब्रिक को लेंगे, ऐसे स्टिच कर देंगे, अंदर तो रॉ एज रह जाएगा. Yes, no.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So what we would do, yesterday I was talking about those pinking scissors which have zigzag scissors on it. You cut through pinking scissors. Okay. This seams works very well with fabrics that do not fray or fray very less. So it works very well with leather goods. It can also work with denim. Okay, because denims generally do not fray much, provided you are doing it on the grain. Then we have the turn and stitched edge. What is it? Which is wherein you are, taking the seam, and so you are stitching it, and then you're turning the raw edge together to do a normal top stitch. So एक plain seam हो गया, and then raw edge को आप once you turn it once and stitch it. Again, works good with fabrics such as cotton, linen. Uh, it is good for garments which are washed more frequently, but we can do it only in cases of, if the seam is straight. We can do it only on the shoulder, or on the side. We cannot do it in a curved edge. This can only be done on a straight edge. Then we have a bias bound edge. Again, a plain seam is done, and the raw edges we bias bounded. So this is important. This is done for fabrics which fray a lot. Okay. Now, this is perfect for fabrics which are, where the seam is done on a curved line. So, for example, अगर हमारा neckline है, armhole है, so you do a stitch of those curved lines and you the raw edges is finished with a bias bound. So you take a extra strip of bias fabric and you bind the raw edges. Now this is an expensive method, but gives a very clean look. It is very commonly done in jackets which doesn't have a lining inside. Then we have these overlocked edges. Now, overlock is not something that you will have in your domestic machines. Overlock machines is a different sort of machines. Now, what is overlocking? You must have seen in a lot of your garments, wherein there is one stitch. For example, in your denims, very commonly used in your denims, the a plain seam is done, and inside the plain seam, the raw edges is overlocked. So the threads are stitched in a way that it is locking the raw edge. Have you seen overlocked stitches? Yes,
Yes,
no.
ma'am.
Yes. So this
Yes,
is
ma'am.
done in most cases, a very common example. However, it looks cheap. So if you are doing mass produced garments, you will do overlock, of course, yes. But if you're aiming for a higher clientele, if you're looking for a more premium clientele, you should avoid overlock because it doesn't give a very clean look. It of course it gives a clean look. I'll not say it doesn't give a clean look, but this is the cheaper way of finishing. Next come the French seam. French seam is done very commonly in our blouses and children. So it's a very sturdy seam, wherein so the raw edge. So I'll show you how to do it tomorrow. But then we stitch front to facing front to front and then back to back, and the entire thing goes inside one pipe of seam and looks and works very well in sheer fabrics like chiffon and georgette and voile, silk for that matter, and looks very premium in this case. Next, we have flat and fell seam. A flat and fell seam is very commonly used in the side seams of our shirts, used in cotton, denim. So, in this, again, the seam, seals inside. The raw edges get sealed inside the seam. Works very well in garments that we frequently wash. Again, jeans के inseam में ये use होता है बहुत ज़्यादा, shirts के side में. These are, you know again, a very sturdy seam. French seam and flat and fell seam are two seams which works very well. French seam looks very classy. Flat and fell seam, on the other hand, might not look classy, but it's very, very sturdy. And finally, we have the welt seam. Welt seam is something which we use in heavy materials like, or for that matter, a little medium weight materials of linen also, mostly in heavyweight material like denim and wool and tweeds, wherein we seal the edge with a welt. Welt are often is an extra fabric which is used to seal the raw edges. Again, a lot of tailored garments use it, skirts use it, dresses. Looks very, very premium and very clean. Okay, so this brings me to the end of the session. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so yes, are there any questions?
मैडम, ये जो नॉर्मल मशीन, जो डोमेस्टिक मशीन, उसमें तो हर तरह की सिलाई नहीं होती है, तो हमें कौन सा लेने से अच्छा रहेगा? क्योंकि
मैडम,
ऐसे नॉर्मली
आपका जो डोमेस्टिक मशीन है उसमें आपका ओवरलॉक को छोड़ के हर तरीके का सीम बन जाएगा. कल मैं आपको दिखाऊंगी कैसे बनता है. हर तरीके का सीम आपका नॉर्मल डोमेस्टिक मशीन में बन सकता है. ठीक है.
हम तो एक ही
आप
तरह के
हाथ
ही
से,
जाते हैं.
हाँ, एक तरह के आपने किया होगा, एक प्लेन आपने किया होगा, बट आपका जो डोमेस्टिक मशीन है उसी में आपके ऑल सॉर्ट ऑफ स्टिचेस कैन बी डन. It is simply how you fold your fabric, how your fabric, is folded. It decides that. And for that matter, any of the seams that I have discussed today, this can be done through hand stitching technique also. It's just not your मशीन स्टिचेस ही चाहिए ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है. ये तो एक सीम का टेक्निक हो गया. ओवरलॉक को छोड़ के हर एक सीम आप हैंड स्टिचेस कर सकते हो, डोमेस्टिक मशीन में कर सकते हो, कहीं पे भी कर सकते हो. जी
मैडम
पार्वती जी.
और एक चीज था जो क्या उसको शटल को चेंज करके अलग अलग तरह के उसके जरूरत नहीं है, उसी से ही हो जाएगा ना, जिसको
उसी से हो
क्या
जाएगा.
बोलते हैं
आपको
पुट.
कुछ अलग करने की जरूरत नहीं है. आपका मशीन जैसा है, जिस सेटिंग में है, उसी सेटिंग में हो जाएगा आपका.
ठीक है.
ठीक है. Anybody else wants to ask anything? No questions? Did I explain very well, or you did not understand anything? There are two cases when people do not ask any questions. Either they understand everything or they do not understand anything. Which one?
We understood everything. You explained
You
it
understood
well.
everything.
Yes,
Good to
ma'am.
know.
Yes.
Okay. For tomorrow's session, I will be showing you how to make these patterns, the basic block. I will show you the bodice, the skirt and the sleeve, and I will I'll show you the different types of seams that are there. I will give you the seam diagrams. I will tell you how to make the seams. Now, for tomorrow's session, what I want you to do is, I'm sure that everybody has, because most of you have machines and you have already been working on machines till now, uh, have a background of stitching a little bit. आप अपने आपको जो मटेरियल्स मिला है फ्रॉम इग्नू, डज एवरीबडी डिड एवरीबडी डाउनलोड इट? सबके पास है?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
प्लीज अगर
No,
नहीं है,
ma'am.
अगर नहीं है प्लीज उसको डाउनलोड कर लीजिए. यू हैव गिवन द लिंक, आई फ्रॉम इग्नू यू हैव बीन सेंट अ लिंक which has all the materials. Please download it for tomorrow's session. So in that part, specifically the practical workbook part, please download the practical workbook part. The rest you can download later and you keep on reading so the block 1 and block 2 you can download later, but the practical workbook part, please download it before tomorrow's session. There are few things that I will ask you to do, not tomorrow, but you have to do it after tomorrow's class and before the last session. So but if you do not have access to those materials, you will not be able to ask me, or if you have any queries, you will not be able to reach me. Hence आप एक बार वो मटेरियल डाउनलोड कर लीजिए. You will see in that material there are tomorrow of course I will discuss it. There are size charts given, and there is a chart given of you taking how to take measurements, what measurements to take. So that would be one of the content that you will have to cover. So please keep those things downloaded. And yes, that is pretty much what you would need for tomorrow. Please follow tomorrow's session, because while I'll be giving the demonstration, it is better that you understand step by step. Yes, anything else that anybody else wants to ask? Or
Ma'am, do we need stitching machine tomorrow?
you don't need stitching machine tomorrow. I will tell you what to do. You can do that later on your stitching machines, and you will take photographs of all sort of things that you'll be taking doing. I'll tell you what are the photographs you have to take, and you will send it. I think you have been shared with my email ID. You have my email ID.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I will tell you what photos you have to take tomorrow, what work you have to do tomorrow, and you will send me all those once you are done. You have completed such works in your machine. You will send me those photos through email. And on the last class, You will please have a good network in the last class wherein you can switch on your video. I would really like to see your faces also. And you have to, as a part of the guidelines of IGNOU, you'll have to show me those works in the class and the evaluations will be done. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
मैम एक
Yes,
बार
ma'am.
email ID आप सेंड कर दीजिए चैट्स में.
क्या एक बार फिर से बताइए.
मेल आईडी.
ईमेल आईडी आपको वो मिला नहीं है, आपको सेंड किया गया है, आई थिंक ईमेल किया गया है. हाउएवर मैं चैट में लिख दे रही हूँ.
यस मैम.
Just a second, guys. I've put it in the chat.
यस मैम रिसीव.
Yes, receipt. So please keep it once I give the demo tomorrow and we can take it forward from there. Okay. So tomorrow our class is at 11. So please be on time and we will start at 11. Yes, there are too many things we have to discuss tomorrow. So please do not be late.
ओके मैम.
Okay. Bye.
गुड इवनिंग मैम.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.